So as you know, this season we visited all 20 Premier League grounds as well as numerous EFL and non-league grounds. Now, let me try not to trip over. Ooh. We love a stadium tour on Roy's Football Paradise, and one of my favourite parts of the stadium tour is taking a glimpse at some of the memorabilia, some of the historic items found around the club or inside the club. Some of the bigger clubs even have dedicated museums to the club's history. Now that got me thinking, why don't we just come here, the National Football Museum here in Manchester, behind me. Now this museum moved from Preston in 2012 and it's been here, right behind me, ever since. So ladies and gents, it's going to be one of those sort of videos where thankfully I don't ramble quite as much. Instead, a little less conversation, a little more action, baby. Let's get inside the National Football Museum. Let's do this.
Oh baby, I'm tired of talking. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on, procrastinate, don't articulate, girl, let's get playing. You just say we're less conversation, a little more action,
Right then guys, so I said I wasn't going to ramble too much, but I thought I'd give you a little bit of narration. Here we have the book, the FA book, which outlined the original 13 laws of association football, as it says down there. Obviously the laws have been expanded upon numerous times since 1863, but that is the book. Over here, in 1863, an Englishman sat down and wrote out the laws of football. Across the world, 250 million people now play football by these laws and billions watch the game. So basically, where it all started. Now as we make our way over here, obviously off the back of those laws being made, the very first Football League champions were, guess in the comments below before I reveal it, who were the very first Football League champions? Of course, it was Preston North End. The Football League was founded in 1888 and they were champions of the 88-89 season. Now this shirt over here, it might look like one of your nan's knitted jumpers, but it's far more monumental. You're going to hear that word quite often. This is an England shirt worn by Arnold Kirk-Smith. Kirky Smith, I'm not sure how you say it, in the world's first international match. This was England versus Scotland in 1872. Now over here, you can't see it very well, but that ugly looking misshaped leather ball was typical of one of the footballs used in 1894, around that time. So obviously football was around prior to those rules being written, but it was kind of a free-for-all as depicted in this painting. Now this painting is from 1839, The Football Game by Thomas Webster. Of all the England players to be featured, that's not a good sign, guys. Jordan bloody Henderson. Now over here, you've got the mascot for the 1966 World Cup. Now this mascot was known as World Cup Willie. Alright then guys, so I hadn't actually planned to talk as you saw from the intro, but I think it's better to kind of shed some light on some of these items featured in the museum. Now you know, if you're a subscriber, how much I love Corinthians. So over here you've got basically a collection of collectibles. You've got Corinthian figures, you've got Janino, Brian Dean, Robbie Earle. We got all sorts of Corinthians. Obviously, they rebranded as Pro Stars. If you're an 80s kid, you'll probably remember these in the background. Before Corinthians, there were Tonka figures, the Tonka toys, action shots. You've got all kinds of stickers over here as well. Who remembers Merlin's stickers? Pro set cards, programs. If you're a football collector, you are going to absolutely love this place. There's loads of random stuff, like here's Cyril, the Swan, the Swansea mascot figure from 2020. So over here it says only 15 teams entered the first FA Cup. The final in March 1872 was won by the Wanderers, beating the Royal Engineers 1-0. The Engineers, Lieutenant Cresswell, broke his collarbone after 10 minutes, but bravely played on because no substitutes were allowed. Different times, guys. Look at these fellas. Real men. The first FA Cup was made in 1872 for £20. Fans nicknamed it the Little Tin Idol, even though it was silver. It was stolen in 1895, so the FA made a new copy. In 1911, a new trophy was designed, and a replica of that trophy is still used today. Now, we mentioned this stadium when we did the Stamford Bridge tour. When we were in the museum, we got confused. When you see this Crystal Palace stadium, you just presumed they were on about Selhurst Park. But there was a stadium, a Crystal Palace stadium, that was used to host FA Cup finals. This one here is from this isn't from 1895, this is from 1901, but it did host the FA Cup final from 1895 to 1991. This one happens to be a match between Tottenham Hotspur and Sheffield United. See, now this is really interesting, guys, because I know a lot of you don't follow women's football, and I've only just started watching it, to be fair. But this shirt is from the late 80s / early 90s, and I don't know if you can see that. It's a Manchester United Ladies FC shirt. Now, they became Manchester United Ladies, or they were formed as like a ladies team in 1989. They then kind of become part of the Manchester United, official branch, if that makes sense. But they were disbanded in 2005 as the Glazers had no plans for a women's team. Obviously, the Man United women's team got reformed in 2018, and they've been doing incredibly well ever since. I know Russo's gone to Arsenal, but Mary Earps, obviously fantastic England goalie, one of the best goalies in the world. But it just shows, doesn't it, how far the women's game has come in recent years. Now here we go. This is kind of proof of how far it's come. In 1921, the FA banned women's teams from its grounds, claiming the game of football is quite unsuitable for females and should not be encouraged. The ban was only lifted in 1971. Christ, for 50 years, women, if that is a woman, I'm not too sure, couldn't even play football. It's bad, regardless of what you think of the women's game. This was an 1890s women's football kit over here. We love a retro kit on the channel, but I think that's a little bit too retro for us, this 1890 women's kit. Now we're talking, guys. These blue, old-looking seats are original Wembley seats, as it says over there. Oh, you're welcome to sit on it. Let's have a little sit down, shall we? So I've said it numerous times on the channel, I was absolutely distraught, even as a kid. How old was I? It was like 2001, wasn't it, when the original Wembley got knocked down? I'd have been like 12 years old, but I was absolutely distraught, and I still think it's an absolute crime that the Twin Towers were knocked down and not restored. But if you did go to the old Wembley, like I did, I went a few times, and I also did a stadium tour. The seats weren't the most comfortable of seats, and it was getting very, very old. Now over here, I believe, is a turnstile from the original Wembley. So an old school turnstile. This was one of the original 100 turnstiles installed at Wembley Stadium in 1923 for nearly 70 years, from 1895. Christ, we are in the National Football Museum, and this is a piece of English football history right here. Love it. Oh, hang on, guys. Now again, if you are a subscriber of the channel, you'll know I'm going to be in my absolute element, because this man over here, the man, the myth, the legend, Archibald Leach, he's responsible for some of the most iconic English or British football grounds. Here we have Ibrox, the home of Rangers. Now obviously this would look familiar, maybe if you're a Villa fan. It looks like the old Trinity Road stand, still looks a bit like the current Holt End. You've even got similarities with Fulham's Craven Cottage, the Johnny Haynes stand, the Stevenage Road one, which it obviously makes reference to over here. There we go. There's the Stevenage Road stand, all designed by this lovely man over here, Archie Leach. You see this site when you look up at so many football grounds. This one's from Fratton Park. Obviously we've done a stadium tour over there. We've also done Goodison Park, again a creation of Archibald Leach. Now you've even got the old White Hart Lane. What a contrast that is to the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I mean we cover all sorts of football history on the channel, but it's great to see the main man, Archie, recognised in the National Football Museum. But something we have also mentioned recently is the Bradford fire of the mid-80s. Now let me just spin the camera around and we'll talk a little bit about the Bradford fire. So when we were at Kenilworth Road the other day, we were talking about the wooden flooring, and I wasn't sure of the regulations. Obviously football grounds are regulated with regards to how they're built, the materials and stuff, partly due to this Valley Parade in 1985. An 11,000 strong crowd cheered on Bradford City as they lifted the 3rd Division trophy before kick-off. But at 3:35, someone dropped a cigarette and it sparked a small fire at the main stand. Obviously the stand went up in flames, and unfortunately 56 fans lost their lives due to that fire. And obviously 4 years later, Hillsborough happened. So the 80s really were a dark time for English football. Now over here, this white England shirt is the actual shirt Jimmy Greaves wore in one of the earlier 1966 group games. All kinds of 66 items from obviously an iconic tournament from an England perspective. Just a reminder, the very first World Cup was held in 1930 in Uruguay, and it was the host nation Uruguay who would win the very first World Cup. They beat Argentina 4-2 in the final. So over here you've got Paul Ince's actual shirt worn at France 1998, Gaza. Got a signed Gary Neville England shirt again from France 1998. So here we have that famous shirt Jurgen Klinsmann wore on his debut for Spurs. Probably more famous for the fact that he did the diving celebration rather than the actual shirt. It is a beautiful shirt though. And ladies and gents, I am thinking of going to Classic Football Shirts afterwards because it's literally down the road. See how we get on for time. So I was queuing up to do the penalty shootout behind me, but the queue was like over half hour long, and I'm the most impatient man you'll ever meet. So I'm going to put on some clips for you in a moment, and you can take a look. Basically, you can come here and take a penalty against various different goalkeepers. I was going to take one against Gordon Banks if possible, but yeah, I can't be bothered to queue. So let's keep looking round this delightful museum. Now this, ladies and gents, is monumental. We love a bit of 90s nostalgia on the channel. That is Robbie Fowler's actual suit for the 1996 FA Cup final between Liverpool and Man United. Obviously United won that game 1-0 with a Cantona goal. But the game is probably more famous for the Spice Boys wearing the white Armani suit. And that's one of the actual ones. Apparently David James was behind that choice. Obviously, I think David James had an Armani sponsorship at the time, so it does make sense. Well, we saw a Gaza one earlier on. That puppet over there is supposed to be Vinnie Jones. I know Vinnie looks terrifying. Sorry, boys. Oh, you can feel him, can you? Everyone remembers Ince with blood all over his shirt, was in that re-released Football's Coming Home video. But you've got his actual shorts for the Italy game over there. Not much blood on the shorts. So this is the oldest surviving FA Cup trophy. The original was stolen in 1895. Really enjoyed this trip today to the National Football Museum, guys. I can't be bothered to queue for that penalty thing, as I said earlier. What I'm going to do now, I think we're going to end up at Classic Football Shirts in Manchester. Let's get over there, let's go and have a mooch.
know I can let you.
So despite seeing a lovely Germany Euro 96 home shirt with Kunz on the back, obviously we know from that Three Lions re-release in 98 when they all lined up with Kunz on the back, he was an actual player, and we are off to Germany for the channel soon. So I was going to get that, but remember, you get like 10% off with CFS10 as your code on classicfootballshirts.co.uk, and we do have a shirt arriving tomorrow, so stay tuned to see what that shirt is. As of right now, I'm off to Main Road, the former home of Manchester City, so if you haven't seen that video, check that video out. It's going to be next to me in a moment, and then I'm heading down to Nottingham for Nottingham Forest versus Fulham matchday vlog, so check that video out. And I'm also going to be buying the final item from each of the Premier League stadiums, each of the club shops, final item from Forest, so we're going to do a video on that as well. I hope you've enjoyed the little look round the National Football Museum. It was fun, I enjoyed it, but it's going to be a busy day. We need to crack on. I'll see you in one of those videos.